think you know Rome? Think again. Before the emperors, before the legions, there was chaos, wolves, betrayal, and blood. Rome fell 15 centuries ago, yet it still shapes our world today. Our laws, our cities, our power, all came from one brutal idea: conquer or be conquered. This is The Immortals, where legends never die. Subscribe and take your place in the ranks of legends. Before Rome was an empire, it was a myth. According to legend, twin brothers, Romulus and Remus, were born from a mortal woman and the god Mars himself. Abandoned on the banks of the Tiber, they were said to be raised by a she-wolf, symbols of survival in a world ruled by violence and ambition. But behind every legend, there's a trace of truth. Archaeology reveals that long before the myth took shape, small tribes lived on the hills of Latium, near the future site of Rome. These people, Latin, Sabine, and Etruscan, shared land, trade, and conflict. They built simple huts, traded salt, and fought for control of the fertile plains around the river. By the 8th century BCE, their settlements began to merge. On the Palatine Hill, archaeologists have uncovered post holes, pottery, and graves dating to around 753 BCE, the traditional date of Rome's foundation. It was here that a cluster of villages became something greater, a city with identity, pride, and destiny. Rome's early kings borrowed heavily from their neighbors. The Etruscans taught them engineering and religion. The Greeks inspired their art, myths, and alphabet. Rome wasn't born from nothing. It was forged from the cultures around it, refined by conflict and hardened by necessity. Early Romans also experimented with small-scale fortifications and irrigation systems, showing that even in its infancy, the city was strategically minded and ambitious. Trade networks began forming along the Tiber, linking the hills to wider Italian communities, giving Rome an early advantage in resources and influence. And yet the story of Romulus remains powerful, not because it's factual, but because it captures the Roman spirit, strength, rivalry, and the will to rule. From the chaos of the ancient hills, a legend became history, and that history would conquer the world. After its legendary founding, Rome entered a period of monarchy that lasted over 2 centuries. 7 kings ruled the city, each leaving a lasting mark on its religion, politics, and architecture. Their reigns built the foundation of what would later become a republic, unlike any other in history. Romulus, the first king, organized the tribes, formed the army, and established the Senate, giving Rome its first taste of structured rule. Numa Pompilius, a peaceful ruler, shaped Roman religion, creating priestly orders, temples, and laws that brought unity through ritual rather than conquest. Tullus Hostilius turned Rome toward expansion. He destroyed Alba Longa, Rome's rival, and absorbed its population, teaching the young city the value of military discipline and dominance. Ancus Marcius, his successor, balanced war with development. He built Rome's first bridge over the Tiber, fortified the hills, and founded Ostia, the port that would link Rome to the sea. Then came Tarquinius Priscus, the first Etruscan king, who transformed Rome from a cluster of villages into a true city. He expanded the Senate, began the Circus Maximus, and initiated the Cloaca Maxima, the great sewer system that still endures beneath modern Rome. Servius Tullius introduced the census, dividing citizens by wealth and status to determine taxes and military service. His reforms gave structure to Roman society and strengthened state control. Finally, Tarquinius Superbus, the last king, ruled with arrogance and cruelty. His reign collapsed after a scandal that shocked Rome, the rape of the noblewoman Lucretia by his son Sextus Tarquinius. Lucretia's suicide became a symbol of injustice, igniting a revolt led by Lucius Junius Brutus and other aristocrats. They expelled the Tarquins in 509 BC, ending the monarchy. From that uprising was born the Roman Republic, a new system where power was meant to serve the people, not enslave them. In just 2 centuries, Rome had transformed from myth into a structured civilization, stone, law, and ambition setting the stage for empire. When the last king was expelled, Rome faced a question that would define its destiny. How do you rule without a ruler? Out of crisis came a new order, the Roman Republic. Power was no longer held by one man, but by a system of balance and rivalry. At its heart stood the Senate, a council of patricians, the old noble families, who advised and often controlled the state. The consuls, 2 men elected each year, replaced the king. Each could command armies, pass laws, and veto the other, ensuring that no single hand could seize total power again. But Rome was far from equal. The commoners, the plebeians, demanded rights and representation. Their protests led to the secessions of the plebs, moments when they abandoned the city and refused to serve in the army until reforms were made. Out of these struggles emerged the tribunes of the people, officials who could defend plebeians against the power of the Senate. This tension between classes forged Rome's resilience. The Republic became a machine built on discipline, law, and ambition. Through alliances and wars, it began expanding across Italy. The Samnite Wars tested Rome's endurance against fierce mountain tribes, while diplomacy turned enemies into allies, binding the peninsula under Roman influence. Central to this success was the Roman legion, not a mob of warriors, but a precise instrument of war. Soldiers trained relentlessly, obeying without hesitation, building roads and forts wherever they went. Their discipline turned Rome's armies into the most feared in the ancient world. By the 3rd century BC, Rome had conquered most of Italy. Its citizens believed their republic was unbreakable, a state forged not by kings, but by iron and will. As ancient historians later said, Rome was not a state with an army. It was an army with a state behind it. By the 3rd century BC, Rome had united Italy, but beyond its shores stood a rival that threatened everything it had built: Carthage, a powerful maritime empire from North Africa. Both nations sought control of the Mediterranean. Their clash would become one of the greatest struggles of the ancient world, the Punic Wars. The First Punic War was fought over Sicily. For the first time, Rome built a navy, learning to fight at sea against Carthage's seasoned sailors. After 2 decades of brutal conflict, Rome emerged victorious, taking Sicily as its first province, but peace would not last. In 218 BC, Hannibal Barca, Carthage's brilliant commander, launched an audacious plan to invade Italy itself. With an army and war elephants, he crossed the Pyrenees, the Alps, and the freezing rivers of Gaul, losing half his men but never his resolve. His campaign became legendary. At Trebia, Trasimene, and finally Cannae, Hannibal annihilated Roman legions through genius tactics. At Cannae alone, over 50,000 Romans fell, the Republic's darkest day. Yet, despite his victories, Hannibal could not break Rome's will. The Senate refused to surrender. Rome raised new armies year after year. Then came Publius Cornelius Scipio, later known as Scipio Africanus. He struck back by taking the war to Africa. At Zama, in 202 BC, his disciplined legions defeated Hannibal's forces, ending the Second Punic War and destroying Carthage's power. Rome now ruled the Western Mediterranean, Spain, Sicily, and North Africa. Its wealth grew, but so did corruption. Conquered lands filled the coffers of the elite, while ordinary citizens returned home to poverty and debt. The Punic Wars made Rome the dominant power of its world, but they also planted the seeds of internal decay. For from this triumph would rise ambition, greed, and the shadows of civil war. By the 1st century IBC, Rome was no longer a united republic. It was a battlefield of ambition. Generals commanded more loyalty than the Senate itself, and armies answered to men, not to laws. Out of this chaos rose 2 names that would shape Rome's destiny: Gaius Marius and Lucius Cornelius Sulla. Their rivalry ignited the first great civil war. Marius, champion of the common soldier, sought reform. Sulla, defender of the aristocracy, seized power by marching his legions into Rome, an unthinkable act. He became dictator, purged his enemies, and ruled through fear. When he died, he left behind a deadly example, that power came not from law, but from the sword. From that legacy emerged a new generation: Pompey, Crassus, and Julius Caesar. Together they formed the first triumvirate, an alliance of wealth, influence, and military genius. But such power could not be shared for long. While Pompey ruled the seas and Crassus sought glory in the east, dying in the sands of Parthia when, according to legend, molten gold was poured down his throat, Caesar marched north into Gaul. For nearly a decade, he conquered tribe after tribe, extending Rome's borders to the Atlantic and crossing into Britain. His victories made him a legend and a threat to the Senate. In 49 BC, ordered to disband his army, Caesar chose defiance. At the banks of the Rubicon River, he spoke the words that would change history. The die is cast. His legions marched on Rome, and another civil war engulfed the Republic. After years of bloodshed, Caesar emerged victorious. But his growing power and his title of dictator for life alarmed the Senate. On the Ides of March, 44 BC, he was stabbed to death by men he once called friends, led by Brutus and Cassius. The Republic died that day too. In the flicker of torchlight, the Senate stood in silence. Rome's freedom ended by its own defenders, and from its ashes, a new kind of ruler would soon rise. The assassination of Julius Caesar left Rome in chaos once again. His death didn't restore the Republic, it buried it. From the struggle that followed rose Caesar's young heir, Octavian, a calm, calculating politician with a vision far greater than any general before him. Standing against him was Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal commander, and his powerful ally, Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt. Together they ruled the East, rich and defiant, while Octavian controlled Rome and its Senate. For years, the two sides competed through diplomacy, propaganda, and intimidation until war became inevitable. In 31 BC, their forces clashed at the Battle of Actium, off the coast of Greece. Antony's fleet, supported by Cleopatra, faced Octavian's disciplined navy under Agrippa. The result was decisive. Antony's fleet broke ranks, Cleopatra fled, and Rome's enemies fell. Soon after, both lovers took their own lives, and Egypt, once the richest kingdom on earth, became just another province of Rome. With no rivals left, Octavian returned to Rome as its undisputed ruler. But instead of calling himself king, he took a new title, Augustus, the revered one. It was a masterstroke of politics. He kept the Senate, the titles, and the image of a republic. But in truth, all power flowed through him. Under Augustus, Rome entered its longest era of peace, the Pax Romana. For more than 2 centuries, trade flourished, roads stretched across continents, and monumental architecture reshaped the city. From the Arapaxes to the great forums and marble temples that replaced the old brick of the Republic. Yet this peace came at a price: absolute control. The legions enforced order from Spain to Syria, the economy thrived under imperial oversight, and religion was used to glorify the emperor himself. Rome had become more than a republic. It was now an empire, the beating heart of the ancient world. After the death of Augustus, Rome entered a new era, one of absolute power and imperial excess. Tiberius, his successor, ruled efficiently at first, but withdrew into paranoia and cruelty, governing from exile on the island of Capri. Then came Caligula, remembered not for his leadership but for his madness, declaring himself a living god, appointing his horse as consul, and plunging Rome into chaos. His assassination opened the path for his uncle, Emperor Claudius, a man underestimated because of his physical ailments, yet he expanded the empire into Britannia and reformed its administration. But the last of this Julio-Claudian line, Nero, brought ruin through extravagance, the persecution of Christians, and the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD. After Nero's fall, civil war tore through the empire. The general Vespasian, restored order, rebuilt the city, and began construction of the Colosseum, a monument not only to entertainment, but to imperial propaganda. His son, Titus, completed it and faced disasters with stoic resolve. The eruption of Vesuvius and a massive fire in Rome. Then came an era of stability, the time of the 5 good emperors. Nerva restored dignity to the office. Trajan expanded the empire to its greatest territorial extent, from Britain to Mesopotamia. Hadrian strengthened its frontiers, raising the famous wall in the north of Britannia. Antoninus Pius ruled in peace and prosperity. And finally, Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, led Rome through wars and plagues while writing the meditations that still echo through time. This was the golden age of Rome, wealth, monuments, and unmatched power. But beneath the marble and glory, cracks began to form. Economic strain, unrest at the borders, and the slow erosion of the discipline that once built an empire without equal. By the 3rd century, Rome, once invincible, was on the edge of collapse. The empire had grown too vast, too complex, and too divided. Between 235 and 284 AD, Rome was thrown into what historians call the crisis of the 3rd century. In less than 50 years, more than 20 emperors rose and fell, many dying violently at the hands of their own soldiers. Power shifted constantly as generals fought for the throne while the frontiers burned. Germanic tribes invaded from the north. The Goths raided deep into Roman territory, even sacking cities like Athens. In the east, the Sassanid Persians captured Emperor Valerian alive, a humiliation the empire would never forget. At the same time, plague and famine ravaged the population, and the economy crumbled as inflation soared. The once mighty denarius became nearly worthless. Then came Diocletian, a soldier emperor who imposed order with iron discipline. Realizing that no single man could govern such an immense realm, he divided the empire into east and west, each ruled by an emperor and a co-emperor. This system, the Tetrarchy, brought temporary stability, but also set the stage for future division. Amid this turbulence rose Constantine the Great. Emerging victorious from civil war, he made 2 decisions that reshaped history: the legalization of Christianity through the Edict of Milan in 313 AD, and the founding of a new capital, Constantinople, built on the ancient site of Byzantium. Strategically located between Europe and Asia, it became the heart of the Eastern Empire. Rome, the Eternal City, was no longer the center of power. The Senate had faded, the legions were stretched thin, and the old gods were replaced by a new faith. Yet even as the world around it changed, the Roman spirit endured, transformed, not destroyed. By the 5th century, the Western Roman Empire was a shadow of its former self. Its borders had collapsed, its armies were no longer Roman, and its emperors ruled in name only. Corruption, civil wars, and economic ruin had drained the lifeblood of the empire that once ruled the known world. In 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. Alaric, king of the Visigoths, marched into Italy and sacked Rome itself. For 3 days, the Eternal City burned. A shock so deep that St. Jerome wrote, "The light of the world has gone out." Rome had not fallen to an enemy in 800 years. The myth of its invincibility was shattered forever. Then came the Huns, fierce warriors from the steppes, led by Attila, the scourge of God. His armies ravaged Gaul and Italy, leaving fear wherever they rode. Though Attila never conquered Rome, the terror he unleashed further weakened the empire's already fragile defenses. As the provinces broke away, the Roman legions, once the pride of the world, disappeared. The empire began hiring barbarian mercenaries to defend its lands, but soon those same warriors turned against it. In 476 AD, the Germanic general Odoacer deposed the young emperor Romulus Augustus. There was no great battle, no heroic last stand, just silence. The Western Roman Empire was gone. Yet Rome did not vanish. Its spirit endured in the Eastern Empire, in Byzantium, and later in every kingdom that borrowed its laws, language, and architecture. Roman roads still connected Europe, Roman ideas still shaped governments, and Roman dreams still built empires. Rome fell, but it was never forgotten, because as long as there is a city that seeks greatness, a law that protects order, or an idea that unites nations, Rome still lives. If you enjoyed this journey through history, subscribe to The Immortals, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. The story of humanity's greatest empires continues, where legends never die.